5.
Wherever I go, I tell people, students, grandmas, and I'm so happy now because when I play, all the races come to me holding their hearts. They said, "You're taking us back home." I said, "We all are from there, you see." And we have to stop to realize no Africa, no jazz, no blues, no bossa nova, no calypso, no reggae. It's the creation of African people. How they did it, up till now, I don't know. Where did Art Tatum come from? I don't know where these people come from. I just don't know. I'm amazed more now. I'm more amazed with Monk and Coleman Hawkins today than I was yesterday. How could they take these European instruments and do what they did and get their own sound?
As Volney described, all the inhabitants have a bloated face, puffed up eyes, wide nose, and thick lips. I was tempted to attribute it to the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to this riddle. On seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features, I remembered the remarkable passage where Herodotus, the 5th century historian, says, "As for me, I judge the Colchians to be a colony of the Egyptians, because, like them, they are black with woolly hair." Volney continues, in other words, the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. Just think that this race of black men today are slaves, and the object of our scorn is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. But as profound and culturally fruitful as the great empire of Egypt, or Kemet, was, there was one greater and even mightier which stretched into the dawn of time, where myth, legend, and history merge as one.
Growing up as a boy, I mean, we loved music before I ever even touched the piano. Music was our way of life, and I grew up in the community of all the nationalities, people from the Caribbean, people from Africa, people from the South, people from Europe, all bringing their cultures, So it was so rich and so wonderful, but music, that was the key, and I can't emphasize too much. It was my mother and father. It was that generation that took us to here, to Ellington, who would bring the best music in the house. They would bring us spiritual or gospel or blues. And they weren't musicians, you see. So I wanted to find out, well, how could they know so much about music, never studying music and whatnot? But when you go to the motherland, the people of Africa are music. Music is the first language. It's how we survived slavery. It's how we survived many hardships. During the early 20s and 30s, when they were lynching black people in this country, your skin was no good, your hair, all the stereotype. But it was that music. Whether it was the black church on Sunday, where I had to be there every Sunday with my Virginia mama and that collection. Then during the week, I was with my Caribbean father. Panama, Jamaica, Proud, Marcus Garvey, Africa, all the time, you see. Plus, we would go to calypso dances, we go to Palladium. So, because everybody comes to New York, So it was wonderful because we were just surrounded with music, and there was no separation between the ages.
Wow, wow. That brings back a lot of memories. Hearing Baba Randy speak, and I'm so happy to be with my African Rhythms alumni, and just a pleasure to see all you brothers, and miss you guys, and I miss playing Baba Randy's music. Um, Today being his 97th heavenly birthday. I know there's some folks that have performances actually in dedication to Randy. They have things they got to do. So what I was thinking would be great if everybody, we'll start with Sharp and then Chief Baba Neil Clark, because I know they have to leave first. But I was thinking it would be great if everybody could share one short story of something that was revelatory about Baba Randy Weston that maybe you didn't know, and then something happened and the light went on. And you said, wow, Sharp, you go first.
uh, oh boy, something revelatory. Well, to be perfectly honest, every time, every moment that I spent with Baba Randy, every moment I always got something from him. It was always an enlightening moment. I remember uh, something comes to mind right now. One day he called me and he said, "Sharp, we're gonna go see Ed Stout." He was in the hospital at the time, and so we made arrangements to come by, and I went by and picked him up when we went to the hospital, and we had we had a great time there, and we spent a couple hours there. But on the drive, he was pointing out all these various places where there were different clubs in Brooklyn, and I think he said there was maybe about 20, 25 clubs, that were around that are no longer around at the current time. So that's one thing that was a moment of enlightenment for me.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many things, musically and spiritually, but that's just one moment.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I could say unequivocally, Sharp, that you're one of the few that I hear playing Randy's music from the inside,
Mhm.
really from a deep spiritual understanding of what he was trying to exemplify, and you can hear you've studied his music, and it's always a pleasure when we play with you to play Randy's music. Chief Baba Neil Clark,
Sir.
give us some of your wisdom, my brother, and anything, any specific incident. We've had many very funny incidences, yeah, get out of here. But just share something that was revelatory about Randy. Maybe you didn't know before this particular incident.
Well, I would say one of the things that was very impactful, I have to say that Randy embodied, he embodied so much. But in the music, I think he brought dignity to the music. He brought reverence to the music. He brought amazement. His own amazement about the music was infectious for everybody. Respect for the music and the musicians. There was magic and there was spirituality. And I think those are things that embodied Baba Randy's presence. I can I can say in particular, very early on, I was working with him. We were doing a concert, and I remember Benny was on the gig, and Randy was such a generous band leader. He would just give you the stage. He would just get up from the piano and just give you the stage. And I remember I was taking a solo, and he and Benny walked around behind me, and while I was playing, and I heard them say, "Yeah, tell a story. Yeah, tell a story." And that was revelatory for me because before that, I was approaching it as music or as a drum solo or as, all of these technical or structural terms about playing tradition or whatever. But Baba Randy said, tell the story. And my whole approach to change, my whole approach to playing changed from he and Benny saying, tell the story.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Chief Baba
Wow.
Neil Clark. And what happened to Billy Harper? He was here a second ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We don't see you though, Billy. Is your um, video on? Because we don't see you. Get- are you there, Billy Harper? I heard him. Well, yeah, Billy Harper, by the way, is not only is an iconic saxophonist, but he's probably the senior member here of Randy Weston's African Rhythms. I think Billy goes back to the early '70s, playing with Randy. And I know the funny story that Billy was with Max Roach when Randy organized the festival in Morocco, and Max, for some reason, didn't make the show, but Billy played drums during that show. Yeah.
Woo. All right.
Billy Harper, you there? Billy Harper? No. Oh man. Well,
He'll be back.
oh, you there? No, I don't see him. Okay. But Billy, when you can come back, please, we want you to share some stories. My very quick story is of Randy's altruism, because when I first met him, very first time. Oh, there's Billy Harper. All right, beautiful. When I first met Randy the very first time, in Brooklyn, at the Brooklyn College downtown on J Street, they were doing a fundraiser for SWAPO, and I approached him and said, "Man, I was working with Abdullah, and you came to hear it. So yeah, I remember you." I said, "Well, could I sit in with you?" He said, "Sure. Where's your horn?" Because all I had was my piccolo. I didn't have my horn. I said, "Well, I got my piccolo." He said, "Can you play high fly on piccolo?" I said, "Sure." So we did high fly, and it was beautiful. Well, 2 weeks later, he calls me up, and I didn't even give him my number. I don't know how he got my number. He called me up and said, "Listen, come by my house. I'm on Lafayette, and I got something for you." And so I went by, and he handed me an envelope with money. I said, "Well, what is this for?" He said, "This is you played with me 2 weeks ago for Swappo." I said, "But I was sitting in. That wasn't a gig. I wasn't expected to get paid." So Randy laughed. He said, "Look, I didn't expect to get paid either. but they gave me some money, so I want to share it with you." So to me, that really sets the tone of who he was, who he is, because he's still with us.
Who he is.
Yes, who he is.
Amen.
It just sets the tone, who he is. Billy Harper, our dear brother, please, Billy, share a revelatory story, something about Randy, maybe when you first started working with him. When did you first start playing with Randy?
Oh my God, that was such a long time ago, man.
I know.
Randy was always like, well, I guess to all of us, he was sort of like a father, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And but he always had words, things to say that kind of help you get yourself together.
Sure. Do you remember some of those early gigs you did with him, like in the early '70s or late '60s?
Oh, yeah. But I'm thinking of sometimes we were in Africa, and some of those gigs were interesting, good, because I had to. Well, it was very different because we were walking through the street, and everybody's everybody's looking because Randy's so tall. So we had little children following us and stuff.
Right. Wow. And I'll never forget, Billy. I was in the car one day, and they were playing "Mystery of Love," the mystery of, and I'm hearing this incredible flute, and I'm saying, "Man, I don't recall recording that with Baba Randy." I kept saying, "Man, I couldn't figure out who it was." It turned out to be you.
Yeah.
Billy Harper. A lot of people don't know Billy Harper plays some mean flute. Yeah. That was beautiful. Brother Vince Hector.
Yes, sir.
Another percussionist that along with Chief Baba Neil Clark, they hold down that rhythm in Randy's rhythm section. Man, tell us anything that you might have experienced in your playing with Baba Randy.
Well, man, it was just such an honor to step in there and, coming next to Baba Neal, who I just admire and respect so much and learn so much from. It was kind of overwhelming at first. And what struck me about Randy was that, he reminded me of my dad as well. My dad was born in 1931. And so it's the same generation, but I lost him when I was 16 years old. And he was a pianist. So, when I started playing with Randy, I started having flashbacks to my childhood playing with my own father. And for some reason, Randy was a spiritual man. I think he kind of felt that, because as Neil could attest, in the beginning, I was very nervous. It was a big deal. And I was very stressed about stepping into that role, although, I was prepared for it. But Randy would pull me to the side every now and then, and he would just tell me the vision and the shapes of the tunes. He never told me what to play.
Right.
Never, ever. I don't know if that applies to everyone, but I would assume it did, right?
Yeah, he gave you painted pictures.
Exactly. So he was always teaching me, and give me the picture and just let me go. And that actually eased the stress, and I was able to relax and really perform at my best. And then when I finally figured out how to play with Randy, because as you know, his time, it's not A and B. It's a whole shape, a huge shape, and it changes. I was so happy because I finally understood it. And Neil and I used to laugh about it. He would walk behind me sometime and say little things. And he would laugh, and I would laugh, and drop a stick here and there. It was just beautiful. So I just, miss him as a teacher. And I think he's still teaching us as well.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
The last thing I know, every year Randy and Fatu would send these beautiful Christmas cards. And even after his passing, every year when we do the home, I put one of those cards up to bring it into my household, and I can feel his presence. So such an honor to be here. And I'm so glad I got the opportunity in my life to perform with one of our masters of the music, as well as all of you gentlemen. So it's an honor. Yes, sir.
Beautiful, Brother Vince. Beautiful. Brother Robert Trowers. We have a trombonist who Robert and I go back to mid-70s, Jazzmobile together. And I remember when Benny Powell became an ancestor in 2010, I recommended to Randy, I said, man, we got to get Bob, because Bob had the same spirit as Benny, that warm, beautiful spirit, and also that big, warm, round sound on the trombone in the image of Benny and Melba Liston and all the great trombonists that played with Randy. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about anything revelatory you've experienced with Randy and coming into the band in 2010 after Benny became an ancestor.
Well, I'd have to say, it's funny that Vince mentioned his dad and how Randy seemed to be, sort of like a spiritual dad. I was lucky. I had my dad well into my 50s, but it was funny. I think it's the poster when we played at the new school, was it? And I was looking at the picture, and I realized it just kind of hit me all of a sudden from the side, from that angle, that Randy's profile was very much like my father's.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, we have common ancestry, because his dad was Panamanian and both my parents were Panamanians, and I showed that picture to one of my childhood friends and said, who does this remind you of? And they looked at it and they were like, oh my God, that's your father.
Wow.
Every time we played with Randy, I'd like look at him, I'm like, man, this is like playing with Dad. But Dad didn't play piano, but he was, I think it was Randy, actually, interesting, his interview where he said something that I think was really important, and it reminded me of my dad, was the fact that there were a lot of people who were very versed in music who weren't necessarily professional musicians that were in the neighborhood. And I mean, my folks were like that. I mean, we listened to calypso, we listened to Afro-Cuban music, we listened to some jazz, we listened to symphonic music. They had all of that stuff that we would listen to all the time, you know. So we had a lot of exposure. As far as revelatory with Randy, I think the thing that that hit me was, it was really like learning to play again, like Vince said, like playing with Randy is like, or playing with the band. Becoming a part of the band is more than looking at the paper, you know. And it took me a minute to kind of get in line with that and be able to do what I felt I could do, you know, because I can't. My contribution is going to be different than Benny Powell or Melvin Liston, or, you know, because we're different people. And, you know, that's kind of the nature of jazz, that your personality is different. So you have to find how your personality can enhance what's happening, you know. And I remember when TK, when you called me for the job at the club that was right across from Lincoln Center.
Iridium.
Iridium, yeah. I was
Iridium.
going to say the Meridian, but that's in Paris. Iridium, yeah. We that was when Benny was having the kidney.
Yeah, right, kidney transplant.
You know? And I remember you telling me that he told you to tell me not to get too comfortable. Yeah.
Well, what Benny told me specifically, he said, tell Bob, stay off of my notes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I could find his notes. I think those were exclusively his. I couldn't get to him.
You know, Bob, that was a running game with me and Benny, because many times we play tunes and we do this long cadenza at the end, and Neil and Al, everybody's playing, and then me and Benny, and then we wind up on the same note, and Benny will say, we hold that one note up, Benny say, hey man, get off my note.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. That's, you know,
beautiful. And I think the thing that really, the thing that I really hold in my heart to this day was after I'd done some gigs with him. I think that's when I left and came here to North Carolina, where I am now, to teach. And we were at what was then the IAJE convention. It was in New York, and I was coming up the stairs. He was coming down, and I said, "Hey, Randy, how you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, there's my favorite trombone player." And I mean, like, at that point, it was like, well, maybe I'm doing something right.
Good. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And we got a great bassist here with us who hails from West Africa, from Nigeria. And he plays so well, they had to name him twice.
Yeah. Actually, I always used to say that was the coolest name in jazz.
That's right. That's right. And Essie, boy, we had some great experiences, with Baba Randy. You want to tell us a little bit about your personal time with Randy and anything that happened to you revelatory?
Well, welcome. Great to see everybody. I used to go listen to you guys play, and whenever I would hear you play, I would think, this is very spiritual. This is like, it's not like listening to a band in a club. It was like having a spiritual experience. And I just thought, wow, I think that you got me on the gig, TK. And so I always felt amazed by how humble Randy was. You know, he was just so humble and down to earth. And I could ask him anything. I could say, what was it like in 1954 in New York City? You know, what was it like seeing Monk and Charlie Parker? And he would tell me whatever, when he would describe that, I could see it. He described it so vividly that I could almost smell it. Like, wow, he just painted the picture of whatever. He would talk about the clubs that were around back then, and there would be just these little clubs, and there'd be Charlie Parker playing there. And I go, wow, that's amazing. And I remember asking him, did Charlie Parker ever jam with Clifford Brown? Because they were around at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy would say, oh, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. But just his way of describing things and his way of playing, and he would teach by example, and just listening to him and just being around him was just like, wow, I'm so lucky to be around this guy, He's like somebody from Nigeria, like an elder from Nigeria, wise elder. And I was just like so honored to play with everybody, and with Randy and all you all too, even though I never played with Bob. Yeah. Did I ever play with Vince Hector in that band?
I don't think we mostly Bobby. Yeah.
It was I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to experience that, and I'll never forget. That's one of my highlights in my life.
Wow, that's beautiful, brother. I see it. Yeah. We feel your spirit. Yeah, and definitely, and I know some folks probably wondering where is Alex Blake.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, well, Alex is actually performing tonight.
Okay,
he's performing at the Brooklyn Library on Eastern Parkway in tribute to Baba Randy. I think he's got Danny Mixon on piano, and I believe Hassan, the Ganawa, will be there as well. Mm-hmm. Sharp is also performing this evening at Sister's Place. For what time, Sharp, is your performance?
7:30.
7:30.
I have to leave now because I got to leave now. I got to deal with rush hour traffic now.
If anybody's listening, please, if you're in the vicinity of Sister's Place, it's on Nostrand Avenue near Jefferson in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yep. Sharp will be there performing solo piano dedicated to Baba Randy.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Also, a lot of things going on this month on the 27th of April. Many of us that you see here, Chief Baba Neil Clark, Vince Hector, myself, Alex Blake, Sharp, and Ayodele, banjo. We're going to do some recreation of the James Reese Europe, some of the selections from the James Reese Europe suite, and that'll be in Brooklyn on the 27th at the Black Veterans Association in Brooklyn on Willoughby. So, and then next month in May, Sharp and Neil and Alex and myself, we're going to travel to Senegal. We're performing at the St. Louis Jazz Festival on May 27th in tribute to Chief Baba. I was going to say Chief Baba Neil Clark, but it's going to be a tribute to Baba Randy. So Randy lives on. His music lives on, and his spirit lives on. We want to thank Gail Boyd tremendously for having us today on her alternate venues for jazz, and Gail and I and Neil, we had some great times with Baba Randy in Rwanda, and in fact I remember one of the day trips we did, we went to the source of the Nile River. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Incredible. So as Benny used to say, Randy doesn't have gigs, he has adventures. And that's surely the case. Gail, I don't know if you want to show something now, another video clip.
Bob was talking about.
My name is Randy Weston. My music is called African Rhythms. Have some excellent musicians. Have Louis Nash on drums, Neil Clark on African percussion, Robert Trower on trombone, T.K. Blue on saxophones, and Alex Blake on bass. We're really a family. And we have a great love and great respect for our ancestors, and we constantly exchange information about what happened before us, going all the way back to the very beginning in Africa itself, you see. So we're really a family. We're not a band. Alex Blake, we've been together off and on since the 70s, you see. So we've been together a while. For me, Africa is like the common denominator. You know, it's obvious to me that my ancestors who were taken from Africa brought here, you know, and they set the foundation for our existence in America. So if my great was an African, I have to be an African to respect them. At the same time, I have to honor them, all the sacrifices that they had to go through. People like Louis Armstrong and Duke and Basie, all those early people who created this music, that's our royalty, you see. So our music is to keep people in tune that this music is not old music. It's music of the 20th century, which was Africa's contribution to the Americas, you see. So that's what our music is all about. So I have music from Morocco, from South Africa, Nigeria, whatever. But it's to show that we have a foundation, and that's Mother Africa. It was powerful. See, I went to Nigeria in '61 before the State Department tour, my first trip to Africa. And so when I went to Nigeria, I was perfectly at home. You know, I said, hey, I never left, you know. Not that I knew the languages, but I felt the spirit of Africa. It never left me because of my father. He let me know, you know, I had to study African history before colonialism, before slavery. So as a boy growing up, I studied about the great African empires. So I had a foundation. So when I went to Nigeria, I spent 2 trips. I played with Fela when he played trumpet in 1963. I went to Nigeria in '61 with Nina Simone, Lionel Hampton, Langston Hughes, 29 of us. Spent 10 days in Lagos. Then the State Department happened after. But the State Department was very important because I had my own sextet, Clifford Jordan, Ray Copeland, Bill Wood, Ed Blackwell, and Chief Bay. I had my son with me. And I played the composition I wrote about Africa. But you have to go to the continent to see whether it's real or not. But we had a tremendous experience.
Wow.
Heavy.
That was heavy.
You know, but Bob, what I wanted to say, man, is that you talked about what Randy, you know, Randy called you. He said you were his favorite trombone player. I can remember very early on, we were on stage and Randy was taking a piano solo. And Benny and I were on the side, you know, checking him out. We stepped to the side. And this was very early on. And just like with Vince and everybody, I'm trying to figure out how to fit into Randy's musical universe, because he had such a characteristically unique approach to performance. And I was trying to, and Vince, you know, the time is so fluid that you know, when you're someone who is primarily dealing with time, how do you? Yeah, so I understand that. But we're standing on the side and we're checking out Randy, and Randy's going deep. And I'm trying to figure out, well, I hope Randy likes what I'm doing. You know, and Benny turns to me and he says, man, I hope Randy likes what I'm doing, because he never lets me know whether he likes what I'm doing. And I said, well, if Benny Powell is wondering, then I'm in good company.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you said that, I was thinking when Benny said the same thing to Count Basie. I think he did the first 1 or 2 gigs, and then he said to Basie, well, Mr. Basie, am I in the band? And Basie said, you still here, aren't you? I didn't fire you yet. You still here. Oh, man. Yeah, we've had some really great times all over the world, you know, with Randy. And just, you know, and who pointed that out? I think I think Sharp mentioned that. Not Sharp, Vince, which is so true. You know, I don't know if any of you all can testify ever being told specifically note-wise or rhythmically what to play, because he's only painted pictures. Like he'll say, you know, okay, this song there's the sun coming over the bay and it's warm, and he paints a picture, and that's you know, it's like when he composed the music for the James Reese Europe suite. and and he wanted me to do the arrangements, and I went by there and I had to look at, because for Randy, he was so beyond musical nomenclature. He never thought like, many of us lay musicians of chords and progressions and things. He was so internalized. So he played so spontaneous and from the spirit of the creator coming through him. He never thought in terms of chords and notes and things. It was just a sound. So I had to watch his hands, and I had to see the notes that he would be playing to orchestrate with the harmony, because his harmony was very complex. But again, he didn't say, "Hey TK, right here I'm playing an A7 sharp 9 flat 5 raise 13." He just, it's a sound. It's a sound. So it was just an incredible experience to be around a master musician on that level. On that level. Billy, you want to share anything about the duo record that you and Randy did together?
Yeah, I think the thing that set the tone was with Randy was just being natural. He was just being natural, and we kind of played what he felt like playing, and it all just flowed, because it didn't seem like a what do you call it, a setup studio kind of gig, where you have to worry about time and all that stuff. We just played.
Wow. Wow. Did he ever tell you what you were going to play?
No. No. He like you said, he painted pictures and stuff, and he was talking about what idea he had as in his vision, in his picture, and we played, Yeah, he was really good in that way.
One of the things for me is that he a characteristic of that. He wrote the tune "Loose Wig." When we first started performing "Loose Wig," Randy very seldom would come in with charts. He'd come in and sit down on the piano and say, "This is what we're going to do tonight." And so we were playing the song, and then it was much later that he told us the story behind the song. And I just found that when he would show you the musical structure of the tune, the head, the bridge or whatever, you play it from a musical perspective. But then when he would tell you the story, your whole approach to playing the song would change, because now you have the opportunity to participate in the telling of that story, as opposed to just playing a musical composition.
Yes.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. You get more of an insight into what he's feeling intrinsically about a place or about a certain experience or about music. In fact, just yesterday I was talking with a mutual friend of Baba Randy, Hisham, the writer from Morocco, and we were talking, and I just started reminiscing. I was telling him one of the early experiences I had playing with Randy in Morocco was 1985. And I remember it was that week we were performing in Marrakesh, his mother had passed away. So the contingent that came from Brooklyn, we all went to the mosque, the Grand Mosque in Marrakesh, and we did a beautiful prayer for Randy's mom. And it was very special. The time I spent with him in Morocco, you could see that he had a deep affinity for Moroccan culture, music, the people, the climate, everything. He felt right at home in Morocco. He felt right at home, and it was beautiful. In that particular festival in '85, it was something quite remarkable happened. And Randy and I, we just always talked about this incident of being on the school bus. They were taking all the performers to the theater, and it was maybe 25 artists on the bus from all over the world, different parts of Africa, Europe, South America, and us coming from the States. And one person somebody on the bus started humming a rhythm. And then another person grabbed a percussionist and started putting some rhythm to that hum. And then somebody grabbed this stick. It was a African bass instrument and started playing one note. Then somebody else, and then the whole bus. It was a jam session. And everybody started playing.
Yeah.
And as the bus was going down the street in Marrakesh, so people looking at us and we're jamming. I mean, seriously, I had my horn out. I was playing. It was just quite remarkable. But again, it really supported the theory that Randy always talked about Mother Africa being the centerpiece, and we all were connected through that centerpiece. Even though we were coming from different countries, but we had that connection through Mother Africa, and we were able to lock in musically with no problem at all.
That's reflective of when we did the Spirit of Africa tour.
Exactly.
That Spirit of Africa tour, it was the quintet, and then it was the Ganawa, and it was Johnny Clyde Copeland, and just the range of music, all expressing different dimensions of an African musical expression. Who would think to put that together? Who would think to put that together like that? Johnny Clyde Copeland, the Ganawa.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Essie, did you ever travel to Africa with Randy?
Yeah, I went to South Africa.
Oh, that's right, South Africa. That's right.
Yeah, with Bill Saxon, and we went. Was that you with Neil? We went on safari, right?
Yeah, we went on a safari.
Safari, yeah. And I sent you the video of the elephants.
When we got to the hotel, we had to show the baboons our ID.
Yeah. Yeah, they were going to your room sometimes.
Right.
Close your window. Close your window. The baboons come in.
Wow. That's right. I remember that we did. It was 2 concerts, but I only made the first one. I think I was teaching at LIU, and I had to get back. But I remember that South Africa, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, Gregory Porter was there. He was there with Jeff King.
He was on that tour. He
was there with Jeff King's band. Yeah, and Craig Harris, trombone player. He was there.
And Bill Saxton.
And Bill Saxton. That's right.
Yeah, that was the tour that Central Brooklyn Jazz Consortium had organized.
Right.
African Pilgrim. I forget the exact name of that tour, but yeah.
Right. Hey, Robert, I was going to ask you, did you ever have an opportunity to play with Benny Powell in the same group, in the same band?
Nothing like permanent. We did a couple like gigs, but not very often for whatever reason. We just never
got you.
But, bands that he was in, I ended up in later after he was gone. Whether it's band or Randy.
Yeah.
I feel well, Benny sure did love you, man. He talked about Robert quite a bit. He just loved your sound. And
I appreciate his appreciation. I definitely had been listening to him for decades. All those albums with Basie and different things he did. It was just a great musical life he had.
And also when you have 2 things I think that Baba Randy should get even more credit for. One, the whole concept of world music. I think he was there on the cutting edge when you think about all the collaborations with African musicians, and also breaking down the gender barrier in jazz. Because he used Melba listening very early.
Yeah.
He used Melba to arrange for him, to write for him. Back when it may not have been the most popular thing. And I know women deserve so much more credit than they get, especially in jazz performances. So Randy was really right there very early in his support for Melba.
And not just with Melba being the female artist that she was or is. Also, after she had the stroke, he continued to work with her.
Exactly.
And he continued to write and arrange for him, which was fascinating for me to see, him having the love and the patience to, to allow her to continue, offering what she had artistically in spite of the challenges that she had because of the stroke.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, we went to LA before the Spirit of Our Ancestors recording in '91. Randy and I had a gig in LA at the Catalinas, and we actually spent the days we spent with Melba because we were just helping. We just checking out how she was coming along in the arrangements because she was working on all those arrangements, and that was the very first time I ever saw anyone work with the computer to do music. That was the cutting edge. I had 91. I had not done that. It was interesting to see Melba working with the computer and putting all this stuff together, for that date, the Spirit of Our Ancestors, which featured the great Dizzy Gillespie and Pharoah Sanders and oh man, so many folks on that date. A lot of cats are cutting out. So I cherish that date tremendously. Billy Harper was on that date.
That's right.
That's right. And that song, it was that one song, I think it was Cookbook, which featured Billy, Dewey Redman, and Pharoah Sanders. We had three master tenors. And Idris Suleiman, another one.
Oh, yeah.
Was on that. Great. Idris Suleiman and Idris Muhammad. And that was the date with Dizzy. I gave Dizzy his chart for African Sunrise, and he looked at me, looked at the music, and said, "Man, I don't read trumpet music." So he said, "I read concert," so I had to write it out. So I wrote it out in concert, and he looked at it, and then he started giving me a lesson. And Randy is a picture with me and Randy and Dizzy looking at this music because Dizzy was saying, yeah, like you see this E minor 7 flat 5. Well, if you put that E, think about that E, think about it as a G minor 6 with the 6 in the bass, and then they'll take you here, and then Dizzy went to the piano, and man, it was just talk about revelatory. It was incredible what he was showing us, and then we'd go to do Sunrise. And I looked over and I see the music I gave him was on the floor. He wasn't even reading it. He just he played the whole thing from ear. Wow. And it was just amazing. It was amazing. Amazing.
I'm coming on just to tell you, man, just how much you have warmed my heart today.
Oh, man.
This has been such a blessing. It's so good to see each and every one of you. And I'm going to go off, but I want to end with one more interview with Randy. So I'll go off, but stick around for a minute after that interview. And thank you.
Plus, Gail, you got to tell us a little bit about your experience with us in Rwanda.
Absolutely.
Oh man, you don't want me to start crying every time I think about how I always say I divide my life between before Rwanda and after Rwanda.
Right.
I learned so much from being around him.
Those moments.
Yeah, it's just a really special moment, and I had them with you at the mouth of the Nile, and I had them with Neil and with who else went with us to the museum that time?
Yeah. I think I just left. I left right before you guys got there, and I was messed up for the rest of the day.
It was a heartbreaking experience. One that I will treasure.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to put this interview on, but don't go away.
Okay.
James reached Europe, the first ones to bring jazz to France during the First World War. They fought during the war as soldiers. Carnegie Hall, 1912, and 150 musicians, 10 pianos. He was the creator with Irene and Vernon Castle of the Foxtrot. So he was an amazing figure. And he got musicians to join the U.S. Army during the First World War. And they fought the Germans during the day. They were decorated by the French Army. And they brought this music the French had never heard before that we call jazz. So a very important figure. So what we do with our music is to let the people know that this music is our culture. It's not just music. It's our culture. It's our way of life. And to understand it better, we have to go back as far as we can to understand what we have, where it comes from. In other words, we're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. I mean, they were very close. Noble was a great singer. Noble was a sergeant in the Army with James Reese Europe, you see. U.B. Blake was also, that generation was very powerful people because they created something that never happened before, you see. So for me, that's our royalty, yeah. We're very lucky because, you see, going back to our parents again, our mother and fathers, they're the ones who took us to hear Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Billie Holiday. They would bring spirituals in the house. We studied European classical music on the piano. They would bring calypso. So our parents, growing up in Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn, not just only my people, but they would bring all kinds of music. So they weren't in categories like today. He said, all the music is ours. So we go to Palladium and hang out, had to be in a black church every Sunday, had blues bands on the corner, but that was all us. You see, because they knew it was all our music, you see. And they were wonderful, and that's our foundation. Plus, they made me take music lessons, my dad. You see, so they gave us a beautiful foundation. And in addition, despite all the racism against our people, they kept us very spiritual. Well, Duke Ellington, he had an orchestral concept on the piano. The piano was an orchestra for him, you know. And so everything came out of that piano. So he was a great pianist. I have some 1928 Duke when he's playing stride piano, but he changed his way of playing to accompany the orchestra. He was the most amazing human being I've ever encountered. And not only his music, but everything he did, everything he wrote, you heard the blues underneath. And the blues is the language of African people, you see? And plus, Duke, like Basie, that generation, the music they wrote were telling stories of how our ancestors lived. Our joys, our sorrows, our funerals, our dance. They were wonderful because they were truly storytellers. And Ellington was a master. And the musicians in his orchestra, everybody, the best. I heard her first with Dizzy Gillespie. I heard her with Dizzy's band in the early 50s. And she wrote an arrangement on My Reverie. And she was featured on trombone. And I heard her, looked at her, instant magic. And we worked together until she died. She was an amazing arranger. And she wrote music for everybody. But she took my music and expanded it, you know, and created a lot of colors. Great, great master arranger.
Wow.
Wow.
Incredible.
Powerful. You know, TK, Randy talked about Ellington and being orchestral and the way he changed for the orchestra. When I started with the band, the trio was Randy, you, and myself. Mm-hmm. When we were touring, and Randy was playing all of the bass lines with his left hand. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating to me that you know, we were out, we were working, we were touring, and it was, you know, piano, saxophone, and percussion. And people were loving the music. It was not about what instruments you're playing, it's about what is the music that's being played.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Vince did, he just sent a message before he left just to, I don't know if I said it correctly, but yeah, we're going to honor, it's funny that I'm happy that Gail brought up Randy's comment on James Reese Europe, because we're going to honor James Reese Europe and the compositions that Randy wrote for him at the Black Veterans for Social Justice. And that's in association there in Brooklyn on Willoughby Street. And it's going to be on April 27th, so Thursday at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7, just 1 hour, where we're going to play selections from the James Reese Europe suite that was composed by Dr. Weston and arranged by myself. And I'm really looking forward to playing some of this music. That's the main thing. I really miss all of you guys tremendously, because we don't get a chance to play enough of, I miss playing Sauce-Eyes, man, with you. I miss playing Anu Anu. I miss playing Little Niles, African Cookbook.
We're not gonna play Cookbook any place else with anybody else.
Blue Moses. I mean, yeah. Wow. I mean, the list goes on. And do y'all remember? I don't know if anybody was near. Were you there when I remember when they did a gala for? I think it was the gala for the Jazz Museum of Harlem, and they had Joey Alexander do a tribute to Randy Weston, and Joey played Blue Moses. But man,
right?
Wow, what he did with it, and Randy was so grateful, and that's all he could say after that performance was Joey Alexander. You know, he just it was really incredible. But it's great to hear a lot of young musicians interpret Randy's music.
You know, and it's wonderful to have the opportunity to play, Uhuru Africa with him. The couple of times that we did it, we did it down at BAM, Majestic, and then we did, and to be with the surviving members of the original recording.
Right. Sure. I think we're about close to our time. I don't know, Gail. I think she wanted to say something with us.
Oh, just to say thank you all, and you have given me a full hour, but you have given me a full heart as well.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you so much for having us. Shout out to Randy's wife, Fatu Weston, and all of the people, and his grandkids who I still perform. In fact, tomorrow I'm playing at the grandkids restaurant, Brother Smokehouse. We're gonna play some Western compositions.
Okay.
With some West African musicians. I have George McIntoe, who's in town, and Brother Francis Mbappe, bassist from Cameroon.
Francis,
yeah. So we're gonna play a couple of Western compositions and so. Well, but thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much.
Take
care.
Thank you.
Okay. Love y'all. All right.